From Tycoon News Studios in Delray Beach, Florida, this is Options GPS with Chris Rowe and Ron Ianieri.
Welcome back to Options GPS. My name is Spider-Man.
And I'm Batman.
And basically we fight crime in our city. We defend the city from criminals at nighttime. But in the daytime, I'm Chris Rowe.
And I'm Ron Ianieri.
And this is Options GPS. Now, the next strategy that we're going to cover is the straddle. And the straddle is a strategy basically when a stock is consolidating. Generally, you'll see something like a symmetrical triangle chart formation, or right before an earnings announcement or something like that, where the stock is either going to break out or break down. It's going to have a big move one direction or the other. The best strategy in that scenario is a straddle.
That's correct, because it's an undefined directional strategy, which means that it's going to make money if the stock goes up or down. We don't need to know the direction. We just know a movement is coming, and that's earnings is a perfect example,
right,
because we know that earnings is going to move the stock.
Right.
We just don't know which way. We can't go into it long because it could move it down.
Right.
We can't go in short because it could move it up. So what do we come in? We come in with a straddle, delta neutral, makes money in either direction, but we have to make sure that we understand the break-evens, because the break-evens are going to decide whether or not we're going to be profitable.
Well, that's why it has to be well-timed. I mean, that's why you mentioned earnings announcements as being one of the best times to initiate a straddle, because you know when the earnings announcement is going to come out. So you want to be in and you want to be out when it comes to the straddle. You know, if it moves in one direction or the other, you're generally going to be profitable if it has a big move in one direction or the other. Now, if it doesn't have a huge move, it's probably best to just exit the straddle right away, right?
Yeah, you're going to get killed in it,
One
though.
way or the other, you're going to exit the straddle right away.
Yep, one way or another.
Why'd you say you're going to get killed in it?
Well, the thing is do understand that this is a big premium outlay strategy.
Right.
You're putting out a lot of premium. That's why we don't do this on a regular basis.
Right.
You have to make sure that if you're going to, buy a straddle, that you know that there's a major event coming, there's an announcement, you know the date, you know that it's going to move the stock in one direction or another. You just don't know which direction.
By a large margin.
It has to be by a large margin, yes.
Okay, so how am I going to get killed if the stock doesn't move by a large margin? If I exit right away, I'm going to make money on one side, I'm going to lose money on the other side.
Because what winds up happening is this announcement normally occurs at night or before the opening the next morning.
Right.
So the straddle that went out at $10 opens up the next morning after the news release at $4. So there you go.
So basically it has to move by a wide
Volatility
margin.
is going to be your enemy here. They're going to pump vol up in front of that earnings announcement, and then as soon as the announcement's made, kaboom, they're going to collapse volatility.
All right. Well, you're going to show us the ideal time to put in the straddle. You're going to show us how it's created, how you do it. It's a pretty simple strategy.
And we're going to be talking about the long straddle only, because we know that we're not going to be selling two naked options.
Well, a short straddle, you're doing what we said not to do twice. You're basically selling naked calls and naked puts, and you don't want to do that because you're taking risk on both sides of being wrong.
Open-ended risk.
Huge risk, and not hedged.
Exactly right, and we don't do that.
Well, show us how to construct a straddle. It's pretty basic, but I think that you should probably, since they are taking our course, you should probably go ahead and show them.
You got it.
Can't leave all the work to me here.
Not a problem. Now let's take a look at the long straddle. Now, obviously, if there's a long straddle, there's a short straddle. And I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not going to teach you the short straddle. And you might say, well, wait a second. I thought I was about to get the most complete, most in-depth option trading course that exists in the market. Well, you are. The only thing is, short straddle will not be one of the strategies in there. Think about how violently opposed I am to individual investors selling a naked option with all the risk that comes with it. Now think of how violently opposed I'd be if you did it twice in the same strategy. And that's what a short straddle would give you. A naked short option, both put and call. Do understand, the key to learning about options is not to be able to say to your friends, hey, I know everything about options. It's to say nothing and look at your bank account. This is a bottom line type of industry. Everyone come from traders down to investors, are gauged by the bottom line, making money. And part of making money is not losing money. I've seen a lot of people use the short straddle effectively. But the problem is that the risk they take in putting on a short straddle is potentially catastrophic. I've told you before, I've taught professional floor traders, I've taught individuals. The only time I ever see anyone get themselves literally over their head in debt from option losses is when they trade a naked option. So I am so emphatic about this that I'd rather you have a bad opinion of me, yet make money, than to have a good opinion of me and say, I really like that guy, except I did that short straddle thing and lost my house, my wife, my kids, and the dog. It's not worth it. So if you're going to shoot me an email and complain, it's Ron. That's all you have to do. Type Ron in at Tycoon and you'll get me. You could type anybody, but I'm not teaching the short straddle. Don't think I don't know it. I do. That's why I'm not teaching it, because you don't know it. You need to stay away from it. The risk is too great. Now that I've gone on my little tirade, let's talk about the long straddle. How do we construct the long straddle? Very simply. We're going to be long a call and long the corresponding put in a 1-to-1 ratio. We are going to go into an option series, and we're going to buy both the call and the put. When we do that, we are going to have the ability, potentially, to make money with the stock going in either direction, provided the stock can get beyond the break-evens set. This strategy has become very popular with people who want to play earnings. Earnings come out 4 times a year, and normally they pretty much move the stock about as much as the stock's going to move all year. This is a strategy that you can take advantage of it, but it comes with some problems, and you need to know where the risks lie in the long straddle. First, functionality. This is known as an undefined directional strategy. We really aren't playing upside here. We're also not playing downside. But we're also not playing sideways. What we're playing is movement. The long straddle's function is to use gamma, the long gamma that it's going to acquire, and it's big long gamma, by the way, to acquire deltas in the right direction for you as the stock moves either up or down. If we believe the stock is capable of a large upcoming movement, but we don't know which direction that movement might be in, this is the strategy you need to employ. Now, you might say, well, how could I not know the direction? News-related items such as earnings. We know that if a company reports real good earnings, stock could fly. They report real bad earnings, stock could get hammered. Sometimes they report good earnings and they get hit. Sometimes they report bad earnings and they fly. It's all depending on how the market reacts. But when we're in the straddle, it doesn't matter why it moves. It just matters that it does move. So it's an undefined directional strategy. We have both situations covered when we talk about movement. We've got the bullish side, we've got the bearish side. Stock goes up, we own calls. Stock goes down, we own puts. So no matter where the stock goes, as long as it goes, we're in good shape. Now, this is obviously a fully hedged position. Why? Because we're long options. Its counterpart, the short straddle, would be not fully hedged. And that's why we don't use it, nor do we condone the use of it. I don't think individual investors, people who are trading their own money, that are really banking on their ability to go into an industry that they're not professionals in and make money for the family's financial future. It's just not worth it. We stick with fully hedged positions. We want to stay in the game. A little bit of loss here and there is not a problem. It's part of the game. Major loss that wipes you out is unacceptable. That's why we don't teach the short straddle. We stick with the long ones. They are fully hedged positions. It's also a premium outlay position, and this is where we might have a problem with the long straddle. We're not just laying out one premium for an individual option. We're throwing out two of them. Remember, this strategy requires the purchase of both a put and a call. And they're both at the money. So let's take a look at the risks and rewards of our long straddle. First, we know we have a limited risk. We're an option buyer here. Our risk is limited to the amount of money we spent. If we buy the call for $4 and buy the put for $4, we've spent a total of $8. There is my limited risk. I can't lose any more money in a long straddle than what I spent. But remember, we're buying two options. Our reward is theoretically unlimited. As the stock runs up, your put, the value will go to zero. But your call will track the stock dollar for dollar to infinity once we get over the break-evens. On the way down, the same is true. Your call might be wind up worthless, but your put will track the stock dollar for dollar all the way to zero after you press the break-even point. The reason that I'm stressing the break-even point is because when you talk about the long straddle, you better have a real good idea of where that break-even is and exactly what it means. Rules of calculation for the break-even. Well, obviously, we're really dealing with two options, but of one strike. What we want to do is we want to add the total value of what we spent on the straddle to the strike price, and then we want to subtract it from the strike price. That's going to give us a little bit of a unique situation here. The straddle has two break-evens. You need to know about both of them. Maximum profits. Hey, our maximum profits are reached with the stock at zero and the stock at infinity. Either one. Obviously, infinity's a little further, so we'd take that profit over the zero. But the fact is that we need to be as far away from the strike as possible in either direction, but we still have to make sure we understand that we've got to at least get past the break-even points. Maximum loss situation. Well, maximum loss is going to be the total of the straddle. If we spend $8 on it, our maximum loss is $8. If we spend $6 on it, our maximum loss is $6. And where does that maximum loss occur? You know. We're talking about two long options. Whenever we buy an option, where's the last place we want the stock to go? Directly to the strike. And it just so happens that both of these options have the same strike because they're corresponding options, a put and a call of the same month and strike. So if we buy the June 55 straddle, come June expiration, the last place we want to see the stock is at 55. If we bought the April 95 straddle, come April expiration, the last place that we want to see that stock is at 95. We don't want to see that stock closing at expiration at the strike. We want it to be in either direction as far as possible. Here we can see a chart of the long straddle. It's showing us an unlimited potential gain in both directions. We want this stock to move. What is this right here? That is our strike price. The last thing we want to do is have the stock at the strike price at expiration, because that's the point of our maximum loss. Here's the thing I want you to see, though. We've got two break-evens. We've got an upside break-even and a downside break-even. Remember, if the stock starts going up, we know that the stock has to first outperform the value of the call. But in a straddle, it not only has to outperform the value of the call, but it's got to outperform the value of the put. This put, if the stock goes up, is going to wind up at zero. We don't just need the stock going up covering our call, it's also got to cover our put. That's why we have to add the value of the straddle to the strike price, because it's not as though the stock just has to cover this call. It's got to cover the put also. We're going to see some wide break-evens on these straddles, and there lies the danger of the long straddle. What are our potential returns? Obviously pretty easy. We're buying an option, actually two of them. We know what we're putting out. And at the end of it, whether we sell out the straddle early or whatever happens, expiration comes, at the end of it, we know what we're going to have made or lost. So if we know what we spent and we know our profit or loss, we have an easy, very simple return calculation. So do understand that during the life of the straddle, this strategy, probably more than any other, will be affected more so by the elements that affect all options. We know that stock movement affects options. We know that volatility affects options, and we know the passage of time affects options. But when we're doing a straddle, unlike other strategies, we're buying two front month at the money options. That means we're going to be loaded down with a ton of long gamma. Movements of the stock are going to change our delta much more aggressively than with another strategy, because we don't just have one options gamma, we've got two options gamma. And those two options are both located in the spot where gamma is the biggest. Stock movement has twice the effect on the straddle than it would on any of the other strategies we've talked about. What about volatility? What's the highest volatility in any given month? Where is that located? The at-the-money strike. We know the at-the-money strike has the highest vega. And we're long not just one, but two of them. And what about the passage of time? Again, we're in the front month, in the at-the-money option, where theta is the largest. We're going to see some real changes in the price of our option with the passage of time, because our option isn't just one, it's a strategy of a combination of buying two of them. Everything here is doubled. So that means the movement of stock, volatility, and time is going to affect the straddle more so than any other one of our strategies. And we know that simply the return calculation here is taking what we spent and dividing it into what we met. And the problem is that normally with a straddle, it's like a home run or strikeout type of thing. Every once in a while, you'll be right, the stock moves gigantically, and you'll make a lot of money. But the problem is, more often than not, the stock doesn't move the way you wanted it to. And because we had to wait to find out, time has hammered your straddle. Volatility going down has crushed your straddle, and the straddle takes a pounding. And that happens more often than not. This is not a high probability trade, even in front of earnings. You've got to understand something about the straddle. When you're in it, if you get a price rise due to a movement in the stock or a movement in volatility, you better think twice and really consider taking that profit right then. Remember how volatility increases puts money into a position. We said that when volatility increases, it increases the price of all options by the amount of the vega. And we said that that happens by the options price increasing through its extrinsic value. If the volatility moves when we're long a straddle, the vol goes up and our straddle becomes more expensive, more valuable, and we have a profit in it. Do understand that the moment that happens, you've got to consider quickly taking those profits. More so than any other position. You've got to react quickly here. Why? Because your gain came through extrinsic value increase. The moment extrinsic value increases from the rise in volatility, time, the passage of time, theta is going to attack those profits immediately. You can't wait 2 or 3 weeks to see what's going to happen, because by that time, whatever profit you had in volatility, you're going to lose to theta. So when you're a buyer of these straddles, you get a quick volatility increase where you have a nice profit. My words to you, take it, because come expiration, that profit will not be there. No matter how much extrinsic value they add to your straddle, it's all coming out by expiration. So when you get it, you better really consider taking it. Now let's take a look at a return example here. Let's say we think a stock is capable of a very big movement, upcoming very big movement, and we decide, hey, you know what? There's a news story coming out that's either going to really greatly help this stock or it's really going to hurt this stock. And we decide that from those news stories, it's kind of a 50-50 thing. We don't know if it's going to be good news or bad news. We don't know if this stock's going to go up or down, but we do know that this news is very important and it will move the stock. So what do? We buy a straddle. Let's say we buy the 55 strike straddle. We buy the call at 3, we buy the put at 3. Well, when we look at it, we know that we have an unlimited potential gain. We are in a position where we're long 2 options. These 2 options offer individually unlimited potential profit, limited potential risk. So if the stock goes up, we can make dollar for dollar forever above the break even. If the stock goes down, we can make dollar for dollar below the break even, at least until 0. So we've got an unlimited maximum potential gain, a limited potential loss, limited to what? $6. How much did we pay to buy the straddle? Remember, whenever we're buying an option, the most we can lose is the amount of money we spent. Let's take a look at the Greeks of the long straddle. First off, delta. This is why we do the straddle at the money. There's a bunch of reasons, and I'm going to go through them right now. Why are we going to do a long straddle at the money? Because it's naturally delta neutral. Remember our opinion walking in. We know the stock's going to move, but we don't know which way. So we don't want to take a position that's long delta. We don't want to take a position that's short delta. We've already admitted to ourselves that we don't know which direction the stock is going to go in. That's why we bought the straddle. We knew it would move, but in terms of what direction, your guess is as good as mine. That means we're better off starting delta neutral. So that way, if the stock starts to run up, our gamma can start acquiring us the right delta immediately, because it doesn't have to offset any wrong delta from the position. If we had gotten ourselves in a position where we're net short delta and the news was good and the stock started to run, our gamma has to acquire first enough delta to offset our negative delta. Then it starts attacking and getting us the long delta that will make us profits. It's going to have to first cover loss, then make gains. Same in the other direction. If we were long delta and the stock went down, gamma's first job would be to cover that long delta. Then it'll start making us money. I don't want to have it cover a mistake, a bad directional lean. I want to be delta neutral. That makes logical sense. If I don't know the direction, be delta neutral. Don't play a direction. Well, the straddle is going to make money or lose money based upon stock movement. And if we have no delta, how in the world are we going to trade stock movement? Gamma. That's the secret. We don't have a delta. So if the stock goes up, stock goes down, we've got no delta. So how do we make money off a straddle if the stock doesn't benefit us going up or down? Gamma. Gamma acquires the delta for us in the movement of the stock. We talked about gamma before, and I recommend anybody who ever plays a long straddle, you go back and you review gamma 3 times, because gamma is the critical element of this strategy. I start off with no delta, because I don't know which way the stock is going. I know that it's going to go, but I don't have the direction. So how do I acquire deltas, long deltas, when the stock goes up, making me profitable? Gamma does it. As the stock runs, my gamma starts getting me long delta on the way up. If the stock were to head down, my gamma is selling me deltas on the way down, making me short. Gamma is the key here, and we need it. If we put on a straddle in an option series where the strike has no gamma, how are we going to make money? We need the big gamma. And where is the big gamma? Front month at the money. Problem is that we not only have a big gamma position, because we have 2 options, not 1, we also have a big theta position. Time will be hitting this extrinsic value that we're long hard, because we're not just long 1, we're long 2. We need not only big movement to make the straddle a winner, we need it quickly. We can't wait forever. The losses from theta will start adding up much quicker than normal, because we don't own just 1 front month at the money option that has the biggest theta. We're long 2 of them. Decay is going to be pretty fierce. So what we need is not only big movement, we need big, quick movement. Kind of like something that earnings would provide. What about our Vega? Well, all we have is 2 long options, both of them at the money. Although they're front month, their Vega won't be as big. We're still going to have a big Vega because we are at the money, where Vega is the biggest. We are going to be long Vega. That means we benefit from an increase in volatility. Again, when volatility increases the value of options by going up, it does so by adding to the extrinsic value. If I make money off of volatility in my straddle because volatility has gone up, I have to make an immediate decision, because the moment that volatility increases and throws a whole mess more extrinsic value into my 2 options, thus increasing their price, thus giving me a profit, theta starts taking chunks out of it right away. I need to know, if I have that jump up in volatility, I need to know right away, hey, did this thing's vol jump up and make me enough that it's worth taking this profit right here off the table and not waiting for whatever news announcement I was thinking about waiting for? That has happened to me, where I've been in a long straddle, and I'm waiting on earnings, which are in 2 weeks. Suddenly, still with a week to go, vol jumps up. At that moment, right then and there, I was forced to make a decision. Is what I just made from my increase in volatility so much that it really warrants me to go and get out of this trade now and skip the news announcement? Sometimes you're better off doing it. You have to consider that potential scenario, because the one thing you always have to remember with profits from volatility is, if you profit from volatility increasing, those profits are short-lived, because theta is going to go after the increase in extrinsic value, which is your profits. So if you get the jump in vol, you've got to think, if I'm going to take the profit, I need to take it right now, because if I wait, that profit's not going to be there. Theta will eat it away. So what we have here is a situation where we've got two break-evens, and in between the two break-evens, we're a loser. Now, in your mind, right now, draw a bell curve over this chart. When you draw the bell curve with this black line, the current stock price, which also should be the strike you're purchasing, you notice that the highest probability of chance of outcome for the stock lies really tightly in the area of loss. That's why the long straddle is basically a low probability trade. Most of the time, you're looking at a stock that's going to finish in an area that does not cover the break-evens. That means that your chance of success being long the straddle, from a standpoint of actual probability, is very low. This is why you don't just throw on a straddle, because we need an event where we know the timing of the announcement of that event. We need an event to come out that has the capability to move this stock more than probability would initially dictate. Because here's our area of loss in the straddle when we're long it. And when you draw your bell curve over there, normally most of this area that's in the high probability outcome is in the loss section. Now let's take a look at another way of building a straddle. Actually, two different ways to create the straddle. One is going to be called the call variant. The other is the put variant. Instead of going to a strike and buying one call and one put, we're going to buy either two calls, call variant, or two puts, put variant. Let's take a look at the call variant a little closer. Say if we're looking at the June 65 straddle. Normally, we buy one June 65 call, we buy one June 65 put. What do we have? We're long the June 65 straddle. However, we can create it in another way with our knowledge of synthetics. What if I went to the June 65 strike, and instead of buying one call and one put, what if I bought two calls? And I turn around and I sell the stock in a 2-to-1 ratio. I buy two calls, and for every two calls, I sell 100 shares of stock. Think about what we've created there. One of those calls will just separate off and leave on its own. The other call, we're going to team 1-to-1 with the short 100 shares. That call, teamed with the short 100 shares, short the stock, long the call, creates the corresponding long put. Now we have one call and one synthetic long put. One long call, one synthetic long put, same strike, same month. We have a straddle, except we created it with two calls and a short 100 shares instead of the normal conventional way. Over here we have the put variant, works for puts also. Instead of buying the June 65 call and June 65 put, I'm going to buy two June 65 puts. And I'm going to buy 100 shares for every two June 65 puts I buy. So if I buy two June 65 puts, I buy 100 long shares. What do I have? Well, if I team the 100 long shares with one of the two puts, I'm going to create a situation where I'm long stock, long put. Long stock, long June 65 put equals what? Synthetically, the long June 65 call. So I'm synthetically long the June 65 call using one of these puts and the 100 shares, and that leaves me the other put. Now I've got what? The June 65 straddle by being synthetically long the call and long the real put. Now you might say, what advantage could that have? Well, when we're talking about corresponding options, and we think about volatility skews, we know that we had something called the put-call skew. What happens if I go to buy my June 65 straddle and I notice that the puts are trading 3 volatility ticks higher than the calls? Well, geez, if I buy the put, I'm going to be spending more money for it because it's of a higher volatility. I can recreate that put using a call. So what do? I buy 2 calls at the lower volatility, sell 100 shares, and now I've created a call variant straddle. That means of the 2 calls I bought, one of them is going to become a synthetic put. And if the call is trading at a lower volatility than that corresponding put, I've recreated that put using a lower priced call because it's at a lower volatility. So when we have a situation of a negative put-call skew, where it's actually a decent enough thing to catch my attention, I might look to the call variant straddle. Vice versa. Why would I do a put variant straddle? Well, maybe it's because there's a positive put-call skew. My calls are trading much higher than my puts. If that is true, then I don't want to buy that expensive call to create my straddle if I don't need to. And I don't need to. Instead of buying one of those cheaper volatility puts, let's buy 2 of them. And let's use the long stock to turn one of them into a synthetic call. So I've recreated the call side of my straddle using a cheaper, lower volatility put. Negative put-call skew, call variant. Positive put-call skew, put variant. And what we've got to understand about the regular conventional straddle, the call variant straddle, and the put variant straddle is that they are truly synthetically equivalent. There will be no difference in my profit, no difference in my loss. They all 3 are identical. Now, due to skew, one might be priced different from the others. If that's true, one might be more inexpensive, one might be more expensive. I can use that to my advantage in getting long in the cheaper one, and then later getting out in the more expensive one. That would create a little bit of an arbitrage there, wouldn't it? And with that arbitrage, I have an opportunity to both buy and sell the same security at different prices, which allows me to lock in a little additional profit if the situation sets up. So how does it work, this straddle thing? Well, as the stock trades up or down, it doesn't matter. One of my 2 options will wind up gaining dollar for dollar with the stock, at least beyond the break-evens. We've got to exceed the break-evens first. And because the break-evens, the upside break-even and downside break-even, are based upon the total cost of the straddle, the stock has to double outperform the upside or double outperform to the downside to get me to my break-even, just to not lose money, let alone what it's got to do to make me money. And that is something you've always got to be aware of. Before you buy a straddle, I don't care what the volatility is, you've got to look at your break-evens. If you put on a straddle where you look at the break-evens and you say, my God, the stock's got to have a 20% move just to make it to the break-evens, you might be barking up the wrong tree with using the long straddle. This is why the long straddle is a very low probability trade. Now, as volatility increases, the straddle will benefit, and it'll benefit by the amount of vega. What you need to understand is when you are long the straddle, you don't just have the long vega of the call. You have the long vega of the call and the put. And because they are corresponding options. And Vega is a strike-based Greek. We know that both options will have the same Vega. So when you put on your straddle, know that your Vega is the Vega of the strike times 2. You have twice the size of the Vega position. So that way you know that if vol pops up, even if it doesn't look like it's a gigantic increase in volatility, it might be substantial enough to force you into a decision because you've got 2 times the Vega. Half of the volatility increase under normal conditions is now making you twice the amount of money. Now, as time passes, the position is going to decrease by the amount of theta. That is something you have to realize. If our extrinsic value increases by a jump up in vol, theta is going to start hitting it right away. You've got to make the decision on, do I take my profits from the volatility increase or not? You can't say, let me give it a week to think about it. Well, guess what? At the end of that week, those profits that you were thinking about, they're probably not going to be there. You have to react quickly on that decision. So maybe in your mind, before vol pops, have an idea of what you'd be happy with in terms of a return. And if you get a volatility pop that gets you to that point of return, sell the doggone thing immediately. Don't let theta take that profit away. Sell and lock it in. Guess what? There'll be another trade to make. What about losses? How do we have this high probability of loss? Well, first off, if the stock does trade up or down, you were right, it moved. It's still got to exceed the break-evens. If the stock finishes, no matter how much it moves, if it still finishes inside the break-evens, you're going to lose. So you've got to realize that we've got to have this stock not just move a little, but move a lot. And not sometime in the future, but right damn soon. We need quick movement and big movement for this to work for us. If we don't get it, that's what we get. And the fact of the matter is those break-evens are normally twice as wide as a normal situation is requiring, because we have 2 options. It's a very low probability trade. Losses are the norm in long straddles. As volatility decreases, the position will lose Vega. Now, here's the problem. When you sit there and see that volatility decreasing, and you see your extrinsic value pouring out, unlike if volatility went up, where you could say, hey, okay, vol's going up, the extrinsic value is probably going to come back down. It has to do with theta. I better get out now. Once volatility decreases and the extrinsic value leaves, it never has to come back, because theta is only working in one direction. It's taking your profits away. It's not putting them back. So if vol goes down while you're long a straddle, you will lose money. And that is money that might not ever come back. Be aware of it. A decrease in volatility is very damaging to a long straddle. And don't forget, theta is never going to help you. It's going to start attacking whatever extrinsic value is in there, and it's going to attack it hard and fast, because you've got twice the amount of extrinsic value in your option because you own 2 options, and they're both at the money. So you own the 2 biggest decaying options on the